Greetings, brother Solomon Hondo. We are officially on air now, so we have to do the formalities again.
No problem. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's good to see everybody there, and I like the setup y'all have, and I've been watching y'all's work for a couple of years now, and I met with Brother Ja first, and y'all have really grown as a community. I've been observing that, so I do watch a lot of y'all's meditation meetings that you broadcast. So again, thanks for having me, and I appreciate it.
Yes, give thanks, brother Hondo. And I think it was maybe 5 years ago I came across your works, and it's
Mhm.
definitely been a big inspiration. And definitely when making decisions, there's always a small Hondo Solomon in my subconscious. With,
Well, honors, man. I really appreciate that. That's big ups for that. Thank you.
thanks. That what would Hondo do? And like you said, experience is a big part. So there's what would Hondo do, and then there's what is this experience teaching? And I think that's what you're talking about when you say about the upcoming book is, having experience to be able to share rather than just studying. So yeah, it's been a big inspiration for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, as I've been observing y'all too, that's the lifestyle that, I've always wanted to at least attempt to blend with what's going on. And the world is changing so quickly. We discussed that actually a couple of weeks ago. But living a more yogic, mystic life is actually it's the ideal way when you're wanting to relate with nature, the rest of nature. So again, y'all also inspiring me to, step out of the mainstream and return to what I was doing when I was much younger. Almost in another lifetime, I was moving quickly in that direction and then got sidetracked. Y'all know how that is. It's very easy to get sidetracked out here when you're trying to return back to an Edenic lifestyle. So
Yes, for sure. So as you know, this is our podcast series called DMT, which stands for Deep Meaningful Talks. So we're going to dive deep into the subject that I know you've studied very deeply, which is family economics and polygamy. And we wanted to open that space to you, and then we're going to share also. We're going to try and keep it to 5 minutes each, but just to share, what is your ideal family dynamic, your ideal um, economics of family? What does that look like if you were to describe it in 5 minutes?
so because of the way the world has shifted, for the worst in many places. The ideal is almost like you have to, while you're forging a path to creating your own environment. Sometimes these things fall into place in under less than ideal conditions, so you have to create what you can in the meantime. But the way that I actually am setting things up with my crew is um, that the women have separate domiciles in separate places, and that's because when it comes to engaging in economics, sometimes you can have the communal setting. You should always have a central location, but also you should have, let's say, I don't, my women are from the Philippines, so if they're with their relatives, I can come see them, and then we can actually expand in that area. And then we can also expand in each area where they're from. And then I will have a central location that everybody can actually come to for communal gatherings. So, like holy days and things like that. If we decide to celebrate, say an accomplishment or an achievement, we can all come together and have it that way. So that's actually coming together quite nicely. That's really, if we're gonna have one ideal condition, that will be it. And in the meantime, you're also creating, for the men, we're creating brotherhoods, and the sisters will have elder women that they can go to for advice and how to function as they enter through each stage of life. And that's something that I would argue that the brotherhood and sisterhood of each individual is probably more important than actually having multiple women itself, because when everybody comes together, they have to have some type of infrastructure already that they're already coming from, or else people will just display a lot of dysfunction and they don't know what to do, and they're very erratic. That's the men and the women, and it's going to be displayed different ways based on your sex. Um, Men tend to be, we tend to be a bit greedy when we shouldn't be, and tend to be a bit out of control with our anger when we don't have proper elders in place. We don't have brothers in place to say, hey, man, like, are you sure you should go that route? Because men, we're supposed to challenge each other, and having for the ladies, having elder women around will help them to channel their emotions as they're navigating life in general, different stages, and also navigating polygamy, because we can't expect every woman to just, they just like it. But which there are certain things that you can have in place where it will help them to adjust to it better. Because sometimes polygyny is a necessity and not necessarily a desire. Because of the well, first of all, nature creates more women, so there's that, and then you have the fact that men pass more in wartime, melee. Um, if we're under urban conditions, we tend to die earlier, things like that. So it creates an even more uneven. It creates an even more uneven ratio of women to men, or women of marrying age to men of sound mind and body who are of marrying age. So uh, that's just a little bit of it in under 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's really good. I really enjoy what you say about the having different stages and having eldership. Um, from experience, this seems to be absolutely fundamental in any type of community, regardless of what kind of relationship dynamics are occurring. Having others to rely on is really important. One thing I did want to ask is, you speak of your crew. How does that look like for you? Like, who's your crew, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I always use synonymous terms. I'll use crew, family, household, team, cipher. I use a lot of these synonymous terms, and it's just to when it comes to politics, which is the aspect of economics that reflects to the outside world who what you're about and who you are. It's good to use identifying terms, honorifics, if we will. Just like we use brother with each other, use sister, such and so, and Mister and Master and Elder and things like that. It just depends on what context you're in. It gives a certain point into an insight into that person or the group. But nevertheless, so you know the two that I have, they're in different parts of the country, so they're literally like, it would take half a day at least to get to the others. I've already mapped out the logistics because they're actually in strategic locations, and I plan to keep them in those locations because they're right near their family. One actually, she lives a short distance from her family's farm, so her family are a bunch of farmers. So one thing that I did was I told her that we could get permission from her elders to how can we say, almost leasing a part of the land and saying, hey, if we can get say 20% of your land to use to sell food in the marketplace, because they have wet markets there, so they're right outdoors. It's natural. It's very, very cool, very communal. We go sell and we can make products from the land. And then I will give a percentage of the funds back to her elder who allowed us to use the land, and that way everyone is benefiting. You've got this cycle. You've got this cycle of resources turning back to everyone. You see, the other one, she lives also same road as her family, and she's always protected there. So I know that if I have to travel for business or anything like that, I know that they're both protected. And at the same time, the route, even though it's a longer route, it's a very easy, simple route to get back. And the second one, she actually lives right across the water from a larger city that will allow me to do business there because it's actually on the mainland. So I always look at geography, I look at climate, I look at availability of resources, I'm looking at the talent, skill, and the desires of each woman. That actually helps me to pull all of this together holistically, and then it allows us to be more fluid. The good thing is they're very cooperative. They know that I'm actually coming in with a plan. They actually like the fact that I'm always coming up with ideas because um, the way the world is going, you have to have some type of sustainable and some type of very adjustable setup. If you don't, you can easily get crushed by outside forces. So that's something that I've been fostering, and that comes from me how I grew up. I grew up with builders and problem solvers, inventors and soldiers and police officers. So it's a constant thinking. So that when you bring these individuals together, the man and the women, or even if he's monogamous, if he has one woman, you're combining all of these strengths, and you slowly drossing off the vices and the negative proclivities of each person to create this thing that's more righteous as time goes on. And that's why moving into each stage of life is very important. So hopefully that makes sense. It gives a little bit of insight.
Yeah, give thanks for sharing, brother. So I'll go next. If I had to describe my perfect scenario, perfect economics, is essentially what we're living as it stands right now, which is being a man with a very large vision. It requires a lot of feminine creative energy. So this can come in the form of intimate relationships, or it can come in the form of being of service to feminine energy that can help to grow a vision. Because without the feminine, without the female, nothing can be birthed into this realm. So even the greatest man came through a woman, and that's something that that's very, very clear. When we speak of like polygyny, it can sometimes seem like a masculine construct, but in its nature, it's actually something that really comes and has been birthed through the feminine. There's a certain level of sisterhood that us as brothers, I don't think we can ever fully attain. And I think when that's birthed and that happens, and the women are in sisterhood, everything is possible for a man
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish.
Yes,
So my perfect scenario
absolutely.
is being a patriarch with a very, very strong vision that requires a lot of energy to accomplish, and attracting the right kind of feminine energy that wants to support that vision. And then through that, I know I'm going to attract other brothers with a similar vision who are able to also set up homestead within the same vicinity. So like right now, for example, where we are, we're in the mountains of Portugal, and we're on one piece of land. But if I look around, there's so much abundance of resource and land. It'll be perfect if there was a tribe over there that had another patriarch with a very strong vision, and we learn ways to share our gifts and talents and resources in that kind of way. So essentially, we're going backwards to go forward. We're coming away from the fiat or the fake currencies, and we're going more into the real currency, which is nature and people. So
Mm-hmm.
us as the peoples, our real talent is in our gifts and our ability to nurture the nature. And in return, by nurturing the nature, we receive the nurture from the mothers or the feminine, and that helps us to continue to be the stronger masculine. So my perfect scenario is being around brotherhood that are focused, that are disciplined, that also have consistent and strong homesteads and families, so that our family, my clan or tribe, can prosper because everywhere you look, there's strength around. So this for me is perfect. Another thing that will definitely boost the way that I'm living now would definitely to be in a climate where tropical fruits grow. But for now, we're in Portugal where a lot grows. But that's definitely the next level, is being in a space where everything can be self-sufficient. There's no need to purchase anything, that everything comes from the earth and from the land. So that would be ideal, to be in a place that's been created from the ground up by the vision that's held by myself and my brothers and sisters around. So that's very important. When it comes to the family, I also agree having eldership in place is very important. eldership that's humble enough to know that the youngest ones who are coming through are coming with different information and codes that even the elders are not aware of. So rather
Yes.
than being like the elders are just on top, the elders are on the top and the bottom. For myself, as I consider myself a king, a sovereign king. Some people hear that and they're triggered. But for me, what that means is I'm actually the servant of the servant. So if you look at
Yeah.
it from a hierarchical perspective, I might make clear decisions because I have a very clear vision. But at the same time, I'm always in service to the person who maybe is just following a vision. So where that translates also into the feminine aspect is that women who come into the space of a polygamous dynamic with myself, they need to have an ability to surrender to the vision, but also enough strength to hold me accountable. So
Yes.
perfect balance. But yeah, definitely for me, my main mission in this lifetime is to procreate. Procreation is at the top of the list. As the world depopulates, I want to be populating. And for me, the responsibility is to keep my mind, my soul, my body in check and in the strongest possible condition it can be, so that that information is spreading to the next. So as the world transitions into whatever new earth or new system it's transitioning into, the next
Mhm.
generations are living free. You know, they're making their own decisions. They've created their own councils, their own governmental structures, so that they are dictating how they live, rather than things coming from the outside in, they're coming from the inside out. So that's what I really foresee. So the overarching thing really is unity and cohesion. When the unity and cohesion is there, everything is possible. You know, we're stronger in numbers, and we're stronger when we all have similarities and we focus on those rather than differences. Um, so yeah, that would be it.
It's funny. Yeah, and that's all strong, brother. Because I actually that's in the manuscript. Everything you said was in the manuscript that I have for polygamy as economic warfare. This is the next book that's coming out probably near the end of the year. Well, I'm sorry, the end of the world's calendar year, not the real new year. But there's you one thing. Well, you said a lot of strong things I want to comment on, but like the heavens and the earth concept is what I call it. You know, heavenly father, earthly mother. Whenever the masculine brings sustenance for the feminine, she exponentializes, not multiplies, but she exponentializes everything. The rain comes, the fall comes, the morning dew. She produces plants, she produces trees, she produces fruit, she produces ground foods. You know, it's all this abundance coming back out. It's just as a woman gives a man a child and gives a man another child and more children. And then you have another woman, you know, she gives you more children. It's the whole procreation is actually a constant in nature. It's always happening. Like it's literally every millisecond there's procreation going on. And thus when a man is not going forth and working with his family, his brothers, his family, his elders to constantly produce, that means you're stagnant, which is actually negative growth. In nature, there's no such thing as stagnation until it becomes dysfunctional. So in other words, for example, you look at a stagnant pool of water. If it never starts to run off and it just sits there, you get all types of vermin, you get mosquitoes, you get all types of things that are being bred. And you get a proliferation of things which are negative, considered negative in nature. But when you see a rushing river, it actually ionizes the atmosphere right around the river. That's why when you go toward a rushing river, you notice it always smells like ozone. That's because it's being produced. So it's in nature, everything has to move. Even when the breeze hits the leaves on the trees and they're moving around, like the tree that's behind you that's in bloom, is helping to spread those seeds around when the wind blows through it. It's constant. Nature is constantly producing, so we have to constantly produce, just as you said. So I I like how you put that, and I agree 110%. Another thing too is the fact that once a man plants a seed, that idea, that vision amongst his brothers and amongst the women that are in the entire tribe, you start to see that production, and that's the feminine energy you talked about is very important. That's why that's why when I look at a lot of the so-called red pill community, like, well, we just don't need women. We'll just make money and sit in our basement and play video games. Like, well, okay, well, you're not producing anything. You think you just made $500,000, but you actually didn't make $500,000. Because if men like us go make $500,000, we're actually gonna put that into a place where the feminine can now make it bloom. And now you're going to end up naturally, organically, you're going to end up making $5 million. you know, and like, and I'm gonna make this last point. Like just to give an example, I noticed that whenever my team is strong and everybody's cooperating, the engine is running smoothly, I notice I always make more money. I usually double my income, and it happens just organically. Like it's not any effort I have to. It's just constantly my ideas are always flowing. Like right now, like I'm about to launch like three new businesses. I'm about to go overseas. We're gonna meet up. Like there's a lot of things that are running, and one of my consorts, she and I talked for an hour this morning before the meeting. We got off the phone maybe 10 minutes before the meeting started. So, the constant production, that's why I stress communication. When a new woman comes along, I say, okay, you have to communicate at this time during the day because I know that the bond will grow. And that's if we're talking in person or we're on the phone, video call, what have you, is very important because, again, nature always communicates one with the next. It's called a biosphere. You all have heard this term. The biosphere is always in action. It's never not communicating one with the next. So I try to mimic that with man-made technology.
Yes, give thanks.
Wow. Wow, beautiful. Give thanks, brothers. Yeah, I enjoy listening to you guys talk about this subject. There are very few subjects that I'm not the master of. I like to study different things, but polygyny is one of the things that I'm definitely a novice in. The concept really came to me seriously through Jar. When Jar came to the community 2020, one of the first things he said to me was polygamy. What are your thoughts? And I was like, I don't have any thoughts on it. And he says, for me, it's very clear what the vision is and what needs to be done. And this has to be a part of where I'm going, at least. So it has to be an open channel. And I didn't really understand it. And I said, if you do what you want to do, you do you. It's not for me. I'm not into that type of thing. I'm married. I've got, family. I'm good. And and then over the months, we would get into debates. Where Ja would obviously try and impart that wisdom of polygyny and family dynamics and how it impacts and benefits us as men, the women, the community, the vision of what we're doing. But I really had a resistance to it. And the resistance for me was really coming from a place of, the programming, number one. Because in my mind, when I heard the word polygamy, I just imagined a man who was exploiting multiple women. And, it's very sexual, it's very exploitative. So I only saw it from what I had heard, what I had seen, and, the programming, basically. So that was one side. The other side was the spiritual side. I had a deep, profound spiritual awakening. And I went really extreme left with my spiritual path to the point where I pretty much renunciated my physical self. I identified more as my soul. So it became very clear to me that I am a soul and not a body. And in extreme terms, I said, all things of this world are no longer relevant for me. I'm going to embody being a soul more than anything else. And I was detached and ready to move on to the next thing outside of this physical avatar that I'm in. So this community really helped me to ground back. So that was good for me because it allowed me to go deep into the depths of the spiritual self. And I learned so much from that. But what this community did for me, living in community, living in nature, living with powerful, grounded women and men, at some point, my soul had to come back into the body and really reconcile the fact that even though I am a soul and not a body, I am inside the body and I'm living and I have to survive. I have to still eat. I still have desires. I still have impulses. There's still a lot of things that this body requires, and also the environment that I'm in also requires. So yeah, this is when things started to click in for me. So I decided that, well, if I'm going to be here in this body and I'm going to be a man with everything that's happening in the world, I've got to start integrating what I know as a spirit into the physical world and really ground it and not be too spiritualized, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, the church is so spiritual that you're no earthly good. That's a term that the church world uses. If you're so spiritual, you're no earthly good.
That's the one. So that's the path that I've been on. So it's not until maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, it clicked, and I began my second awakening, which is my physical awakening. So I had a spiritual awakening, but I didn't have a physical awakening. So my physical awakening, a lot of ancestral DNA kicked in, a lot of my ancestral memories kicked in, and everything started to make sense. So I woke up one day, I was having a conversation with Ja, and things that didn't make sense a day ago were making so much sense now. I was like, wow, this is why this is this way, and this is why that, and this is
downloading.
They've done this, and everything just made sense. And and I think a few people thought I lost my mind because I did a complete U-turn from, guys, this I don't like the sound of this. I don't like where this is going to. We all need to be doing this. Everyone should be doing this. This is the answer to everything. So this is the path that I've been on. And as my ancestral memories have been kicking in, a lot of things have been remembering why polygyny is so important. And Ja has been a really good grounding force because I always approach things from a spirit perspective first, without much context in the physical. So there are a lot of things I'm like, women, and then Ja's like, well, yeah, because physically this is what it means, or biologically this is how it is, economically, So it's really grounding. So we're a really good team in that way. And and I'm really enjoying the process. So for me, ideal, to sum it up, my ideal scenario is I see polygyny for me as a spiritual practice, first and foremost. I see it as women have a certain energy that they embody, and men have a certain energy that we embody. And when we're in human form, we have optimal optics, let's call them that will help us to perform better mentally, emotionally, and physically. And the reason why the world is so disjointed is because there isn't any formulas of how to live that allow us to be balanced in our being. And then it comes out in all kinds of ways. So I'm going to call it extended families, which fall into polygyny. Extended families have been destroyed by the system, and that's how they've infiltrated many cultures and many souls. And lots of people have lost themselves because they've taken away the foundation of what it is to be a human being. And the foundation of what it is to be a human being is trust, is unity, is co-creation and procreation. When you have those things, you have abundance and you thrive. So
yes,
this scenario is a situation where we have powerful women who are who have realized their essence, their power, and powerful men who have activated their vision and their strength. And when you have men who have vision, who have strength, and who have direction, and you have women who have cultured the nurturing aspect and the energy of cultivating what has been produced, as you guys have both said, then you have abundance. Then you have abundance. Everything else falls away. Things like jealousy, things like greed, things like competition, unhealthy competition. All those things fall away because you are now in co-creativity and procreativity, and you flourish and you become abundant. And where there is wealth, there is health. And where there is wealth and health, there is unlimited possibilities. Everything opens up. The whole world becomes your oyster. And this is what we're now culturing here at PINEAL for sure.
And that's what I tell people all the time, brothers, is that, polygamous men never use the word impossible when it comes to ideas. I grew up in polygyny. I grew up in a more Western urban style of it, but I saw it, and I've never heard any, and all of my friends are polygamous men. So I've never heard us say we can't do that. I hear it for a lot from men who reject polygamy, because what happens is and this is a natural outcropping of it, and you guys have mentioned this, women will look at you like, oh, this guy is, he only thinks this low, so I'm going to treat him like he's this low. But that's something I noticed. I've been noticing that for the last 40 some odd years about the reaction to women when they just want their man to have one woman. They always treat them like they're, but when polygamy is messed up on the scene, we're trying to activate our women. We're trying to turn that activity that you mentioned from the masculine, trying to turn it back to them and say, hey, look, you know, we can do this. And women are very experiential. They like to say, oh, look over there, look, we could, let's try that, you know, and they see colors and lights and sounds, they react to that, and that's natural. And we're supposed to be able to give them that and say, hey, didn't you say you know how to sew? And then she shows you something like, hey, let's start a business doing that. We can sell these things. You know, why don't you teach other sisters this? Oh, we found out that elder sister down the road, she knows how to do it too. And then you start that community that we're talking about. It's a constant wheel that's turning. One of the advantages too that a lot of women don't see it until they actually see it and they're in it, is that they don't have to expend. Men tend to have a lot more like physical energy to do like hard labor for long periods of time. And when you have women who try to just share in these duties, they don't share in these duties. Not just, you know, take care of their man, of course, but just doing household things, then actually going out and running a business or managing a business is much easier if you have other sisters to do that with. You don't, you know, there's too much of the masculine energy over them. Like, you know, we have bass in our voice. We're talking to them all. They need the sisterhood. They need that. So when they have each other to not only cultivate but to share in duties, it actually helps to make their energy, their physical energy, more efficient. So now they don't. Now they will age more gracefully. I've actually seen polygynous women, and they age very gracefully as they go through each stage of life. So it's very interesting to watch how the just the sharing of duties, just basic everyday life. Even when it comes to, and I know you all follow to an extent of biblical culture, like when you see that like a woman may be on her cycle or her menses, um, if she's separated for a time, like physically, then other women can actually serve her during that time. Like, so traditionally, what happened in most communities worldwide, the women who are postmenopausal would actually serve the women who are going through their cycle during that 7 day period. They were the postmenopausal, so usually they were in their 40s, 50s, and up. They will go serve them, and that way the woman is still feeling like she's loved. You know, she's not so isolated. I mean, this is just natural. You never want to be isolated. You're just out in the dark room. It's not. It's not like that. That's that's a dereliction of duty. You know, you have to make sure that your women are cultivated even in their time of in their doing the weekly their monthly sabbatical, because it's essentially supposed to be a sabbatical. So that's just one example in real time. And polygyny is very pragmatic. And love comes out of that engaging in that pragmatism and seeing how each other reacts in real time. So it's very interesting. I just wanted to kind of piggyback off what you guys were saying here.
You know, that's something we've seen here. It was called Red Tent, which was that sabbatical you speak of. So when a woman comes into menses, then they would take that time in silence or by themselves to be able to rest and go through that process. The different one which we study here, which is so there's a fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid, which goes from the lower centers up into the pineal gland. So from the testes to the pineal. And when there's 2 to 3 days per month where a man goes through his own cycle, where that cerebral spinal fluid is going up and down continuously, and it's a time to actually pay reverence to as well. We don't have to necessarily take a sabbatical, but there's certain energy practices we can do, and that will enhance our manifestation as the masculine direction. So again, it's like when we flow with nature,
I actually practice that.
Yeah, you practice that.
No, I'll say I've been practicing that for about 15 years because of that. I've always taken like usually toward the end of each month. I normally take 3 to 5 days where I either my work is much like 90% lighter, or I take that time off. Like I've taken 3 days off. I'm actually in Houston, Texas right now. I took 3 days off because, like you said, it's very important to honor that spirit within. and I've practiced that for many years. So yeah, I understand. I always take a sabbatical because if you don't, you're going to get worn out as a man because you're dealing with a lot of enterprises, and then you're dealing with multiple women. Even if you're monogamously married, you're still you can't go 24/7. You have to take that time. So
Yeah. Maybe after the call, I can ask you your Earth Day, and I can tell you which days of the month the fluid is operating. Perhaps you've been doing it naturally, but I definitely love to share that. One thing I want
absolutely,
to hit was I think on this call, I think between myself and Agua, we're about I think 8 or 9 years. He's like 8 or 9 years my senior, my elder, and I think you're about the same to Agua. So in essence, in one call, we've got multiple generations. That's one thing I also enjoy about community is that as someone who's stepping into more of an eldership, a kingship, I can still relate to the men who are a little younger than I am. I still remember what it's like to be in their stage. So I impart certain information. Some information I'm collecting, say for example, from Agua, and then I'm translating it in a way that others will understand or understand. In the same way, youngest, the 8-year-old boy or the 11-year-old boy, I have to translate it in a different way. So I just wanted to offer something to those who are listening online, especially those who pick this up on Instagram or those platforms. But I like to study how the artificial intelligence has been showing us about our behaviors and human nature.
mm-hmm.
So we obviously know, and it's probably in your manuscript, I'm sure, that there's more women in this earth than there are men. That
Yes.
that I've known for a while, but perfect. Um, so there's a
I actually proved that. I actually proved that in the manuscript. I proved that UNESCO, World Health Organization, CIA, FBI, and other government agents actually proved that they lie about statistical data regarding the raw numbers of the population. Because remember, first of all, sudden infant death syndrome occurs more with young boys, young male infants. So you've got that. So they try to say there's a 1.1 to 1 ratio of women to men, but that's impossible throughout the life cycle because again, men die more in wars, melee, basic fights. We die more in work accidents. We generally, if you're in an industrialized country, you die younger. So they try to act like this is a static thing, but in mathematics, when you're dealing with living things, is always dynamic, is never static. So when you count those things up, it doesn't, it's not going to be a 1-to-1 ratio by the time we're of marrying age. Let's just say, a man is 25 and, the ladies are, 18, 19, you're going to already have a 1.3 to 1.4 ratio already, by the time you reach marrying age. So it's completely impossible to only have 10% more women than men.
I wanted to just fill up a stat quick. So there's an app online called Tinder. I don't know if you heard of it, but essentially it's a dating app, right? So the statistics from Tinder since it began shows 80% of women go for 20% of the men. So 20% of all of the men on the app are being targeted by 80% of the women. And that's one thing also being in community you see. Or one thing that I know is women naturally go for the strongest. That's just natural. So I wanted to plug that in really because some people say, well, it's either unfair or it's, it's misogynist or it's domination of the females. But when you look at the nature, which we always have to come back to, the nature is shown through this digital app anyway. I know it's an app, but at the same time, it shows us that 80% of women go for 20% of the men.
Well, you learn a lot by just allowing women and men to interact naturally. You're going to see how humans interact. I mean, you can just take like your community, you can take us out here in Houston, you can go to the Philippines, you can go to Grenada, you can go to any place on the planet and just watch a group of people in the same digital space or in the same temporal space. and you're going to see the same reflection, because human beings don't change how we interact with each other. We're going to, in extreme times, either to the left or to the right, we're always going to end up doing the same thing. And I've seen it before. Like, that's why the jocks, in high school, they get they get all the girls. I actually had a young girl tell me that, though. She and her sister was 17 and 16. I knew a woman who had these two daughters, and we were all talking about polygyny, and they said in their high school, and one of them was an athlete. The 17-year-old was an athlete. She said, and she was like a recruit, like colleges were trying to recruit her. She said, look, all the guys on the basketball and football teams who are like the best at what they do, all the girls want them. They attract all the girls. They said, we understand polygyny even at our age. They said there's no way these women are going to go after the dudes who are just like, whatever. They want the most active, the most powerful, the most dominant men. So you can't get away from it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point for us to plug into as well. I know you're a military man, so you like military terms and perspectives. But one thing that I've also done is really looked at this situation from a strategic perspective. So there are things that we've picked up on, or that we've spoken about in this call, things like we're at war. So in times of war, human beings, will have to behave in a certain way to adjust or to make up for whatever that war is going to create. So during times of abundance and peace and all of these things, polygyny is not so important. You don't need to be polygynous because there's abundance. So the men will naturally not need to be as strong as they need to be as usual, because there's so much resources.
Right.
The women, so people can become restrictive in terms of abundance. In times of scarcity and in times of war, more people will die, resources become scarce, there is less trust, there is more fear. This is when men have to step into more of that masculine role. We have to become more protective. We have to become stronger. We have to provide more. We have to become more resourceful. We have to become more creative, more procreative. Women have to nurture more. Women have to sacrifice a lot more. Women have to hold space for each other. They have to be also strong, because the men might have to go out and fight, and the women have to stay behind and defend the home. So if the women are staying behind and defending the home, and they're in competition and not in union, the whole thing collapses. So when in times of war like we're in now, it's very, very clear that for us to survive, or for us to thrive into this new earth everyone is talking about, we have to create structures and family units that are militarized, essentially, for all the different kind of reasons. One of the reasons, which is very obvious, there is a depopulation agenda, and there is an agenda to hinder the organic process of creating babies. Basically, they want to create factory-made babies that are created artificially, cyborg human beings. So eventually, there is a sect of entities on this earth who are saying at some point, all the men and women will not be able to naturally reproduce. Women will not be able to get pregnant. Men will not have the right tools, whether it's emotionally, mentally, and physically, to impregnate a woman. And when that happens, we'll have machines that will do that. They will take a swab of your DNA, put it into a test tube, swab of a woman, put it in a test tube, bang, you've got a baby. And those babies will be designed artificially. We know that that is not the original design of how we should be living as human beings. We know that clearly on this earth, we go down that path. Eventually, it's a path of destruction. It's not regenerative. It's not sustainable. So for us to stop that, there have to be men and women who activate naturally. It's going to happen naturally. This is what happened to me in my awakening. Something said to me, if you want to save the world, this is one step closer to it, as crazy as it sounds, right? So if you start to lead the way with other powerful men on how we can militarize this strategy of making sure that humanity remains organic and thrives, this is what needs to be done. And then it's fundamentally also backed up by biological facts. So when the facts come in, and Jai is saying, did you know that a man produces 120 million sperm cells every single day, and women have one egg, and it takes one man, 30 days to impregnate every single woman on earth. It only takes one man, right? You take the semen of one man, 30 days, every woman on earth is impregnated. So when you look at those basic facts, it's like, well, this is how you can win back this war. So this war that machines are creating to depopulate, we can repopulate by adopting what we call polygyny, which is just extended families, which is what's the word? Which is a procreative and co-creative system or way of living.
That's why I called the book Polygamy, the next book, Polygamy as Economic Warfare, because it's the ultimate tool to reinstitute systems. Because once you have what I have a concept called power in numbers. Once you produce numbers, you need a system. Like, that's why, again, a polygamy, the women who are very much in their natural design, in their mindset, they'll come to a man and be like, I've had women say, like, I would actually engage in polygamy if more men like understood how to do it, but they, and I said, that's because most men don't think in terms of systems. That's one reason why I'm actually training in cybersecurity, because I can even see on the other end, like, how they're trying to mimic systems to design computers. You see what I'm saying? And to design software. Like, they're trying to mimic human systems, but the human system is always the grandest system, because that's what we've been given. That's what we've been given to do. Even in the Bible, when you start talking about when Yahweh begins to talk about having a man having dominion, a lot of people don't understand that true dominion means there's a nurturing aspect and there's a military aspect, and there's that procreation, and then there's the recreation. All of that is contained in real time with dominion. And that's what it means. It doesn't just mean like control over the woman and I'm going to till the land and agriculture. And it's not even that. It's this big grand scheme that where it protects people with more people who are on the same page, as Brother Jha was saying earlier, with everybody on the same page. You can get a lot done. That's why in warfare, you see a lot of times where you'll see 100 men will destroy an army of 20,000. There's a movie, if those of you who are into war films, there's a movie called The Great Battle. It's called The Great Battle. I love these old East Asian war films because it gives you a lot of insight into human nature. And in that movie, you'll see there's a general who is tasked to protect a fortress. Like, it's like way out on the edge of the desert. And his specialty is in siege warfare. So he's actually a well-known, well-respected general. And this army comes in, and I mean, they've got like 40,000 people. He's probably got like 6,000. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? Like, these guys are going to crush us. And as he was walking around doing the planning, he started observing the children. They were playing a game. And he said, wait a minute, I got an idea. And, long story short, they were victorious, but it's a great movie if you really want to talk about economic warfare, because you see the human aspect where he has to interact with a former lover. You see where there's an enemy who tries to infiltrate and who becomes an ally. Why? Because of righteousness. You see all of this in the movie, and I'm always watching for these clues in the movie. There's a lot of subplots in the movie. It's like a 2.5 hour film. Watching another movie called Red Cliff. You want to watch the original 6 hour version that's in 2 parts, not the 2.5 hour version, which is nothing compared to the other one, because it gives you these insights that we're talking about, our brotherhood, having alliances, national, a sense of nationalism and cohesion. You see these things. That's one reason why I use military terms all the time, because you have to do that in order to buffer against outside forces when they're trying to invade you. So I don't know. I just get excited about this stuff, this whole topic, because it's 720 degrees. Very comprehensive.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. It's kind of like a segue, but it also plugs into this. One of the biggest aha moments that I had in terms of military strategy is when I had my awakening. One of the things that I thought about was strategizing my move as a soul, not even as a man, as a soul. So in this lifetime, I'm going to live a certain amount of time, and at some point my soul is going to transition into another reality. So when I started thinking military wise, and I started thinking, right, what kind of reality do I want to be going into in my next lifetime? So I'm not just planning in weeks or months or decades, I'm planning in lifetimes for myself and also for future generations. And one of the thoughts that came to me was, well, for me personally, my knowing, it's not even a belief, my knowing is that reincarnation is a thing that we all experience. We all reincarnate, right? Lifetime after lifetime, when we learn something new, we have an experience, we pass on, we come back into it. So when I realized that I'm likely to reincarnate or possibly going to reincarnate or move into another space, I put myself into the space of a soul reincarnating into a family. And I said to myself, if I had to choose the perfect family to reincarnate into for me to be able to thrive as a young future, as a young baby, as a young man or woman, what kind of family dynamic would give me the best head start in life to be the best version of self? And when I thought about that, I thought to myself, do I want to be born into a couple, man and a woman, living in a house, trying to work things out between them and trying to raise me and my brothers and sisters and all this drama? Or would I want to grow up in a home where I've got 4, 5 moms, a very powerful man who's my dad, and these women are nurturing me and looking after me? Like that is what I want to grow up in as a baby. I want to be around beautiful, powerful women who are nurturing me. Not just one woman who's nurturing me, 4 or 5 women who love me as their own. I mean, what better reality to live in as a future, as a baby? And then if you have a powerful man, other men in the community who are strong, who teach me, if I'm a man, how to be that. And if I'm a woman, I can be around men who I can marry into one day and go into union with a man who can protect me, provide for me, look after me, who's also culturally in the same space where my emotional needs are not just on him, but he's created a space where my emotional needs can be met. I'm winning. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. It was like, well, if that's what I want for myself, that's what I've got to start creating now. I've got to create that for myself now. I've got to do it now. I can't say that's what I would like one day, and I'm not doing it. So I've got to do it for my futures now, my babies that are coming now, but I've got to do it for myself as well. For when I reincarnate, if I reincarnate back, I want to reincarnate into a polygamous family. There's no doubt about that for me.
Yeah, everything you said was like, it's powerful because what's happened is, just from what you're telling us, is that as you've grown just as a man, you know, it just, and according to your spiritual tradition, they're like, you're starting to understand mentally like where this thing can go. Like exactly how far down the rabbit hole can we go with this. And I actually wanted to mention something too about the protection of women. You know, you all mentioned earlier how you know, the raw numbers of women, you know, like what are you gonna do? You can't just, everybody can't just be just all out here, you know, and engaging in lewd behaviors. Well, there's a series of books called Thaliptera. It's called Thaliptera. And in these books, there was one of the so-called church fathers. They were in these ongoing debates about various economic matters during some of the plagues and wars in Europe. This is several hundred years ago. And in one of the books, I can't remember if it was volumes 1, 2, or 3, but one of my other brethren who promotes polygamy, named Edward King. Shouts out to Edward King, by the way. I'm gonna make sure he sees this interview. But he told me about Thaliptera, and in it, there's a transcript of a debate between a church leader against another church leader. And he said, look, we've had the Black Plague, we've had these other plagues, we've got these different illnesses that are coming around, and we've got several hundred years of war between different European states. We're running out of men. So the women have gone to prostitution. Many of the women don't have a husband. They're not prostitutes. They don't have a husband. They're not said, we need to promote having second, third wives and so forth, and concubines, because if we don't put them in a family system, our nations will be destroyed. They're actually having this debate, and this book is thick, and they're having this huge debate about it, because the primary concern was a lot of those women will want to gravitate toward those men anyway. But in a closed society for each nation, they were very much concerned about the women being degraded because they're just no husband. What are you going to do? The women deserve a man. Women should have a man, a good man, one who's of righteous spirit, sound mind, strong body. And the women should also not be degraded through allowing them space to become prostitutes in order to eat bread. I mean, you should never have to do that. Now, some people watching this may say, well, that's unrealistic. That was then, that was way back then, over there somewhere, and it's not now. Well, one thing I noticed in the United States, for example, during the so-called pandemic, we know this thing was planned and orchestrated, right? What ended up happening is 70% of the people in the United States, men and women, lost their jobs. There was another, out of the next 30, I believe another 15% or so were underemployed, which means they were working under the amount of hours that in days it takes for them to actually survive and subsist. Okay. The vast majority of the people who lost their jobs were women, not men, because men generally have the jobs that undergird society. You know, you need the builders, that's men. You need people to make roads, that's men. Most of the architects are men. Most of the people working on the electricity are men. And most of the service industries got shut down. I mean, I traveled for one of my careers. I'm actually retiring from that in the next couple of months, but one of my careers, I'm all over the country. And one thing I noticed, every town, hamlet, village, city you went to, it was a ghost town. Most of these businesses were dark. And I noticed most of these businesses were generally staffed mostly by women, because these are the type of businesses that are mostly staffed by women. And I watched how the women were reacting. You did not hear 1 ounce of feminism. You didn't hear any women, like women were not going against their men. You didn't see videos against men. You didn't see, I was looking for 3 years, you didn't see none of that. And me and other men were talking about it online, we're on the phone talking about it in person. And I was like, have you heard anybody? I mean, yeah, man, my wife's been very cooperative lately. I'm like, yeah, I bet she has been. You know, so I was like, yeah, I know, because she's not going to those streets. So what ended up also happening is you saw a rise in prostitution in various forms. Now, this is not just here. You started seeing a lot of women going to the internet. Hey, send me a Snapchat. You know, hit me up on Snapchat. You know, you saw that's when OnlyFans was cresting. In that first by year and a half or two, it was cresting. And you saw a lot of women saying, well, shoot, I'm not going back to be a waitress. I'm not going to go back to being, you had women who were executives who were going to OnlyFans to sell themselves. Mm-hmm. This was funny. And I said, okay. I mean, it's not funny, but it was like, it was interesting for them to be up here saying that they don't need a man. But they wanted men to finance them. So what I said was, what men should have done is not cater to that and just said, you know what, we're either going to take care of you like in a non physically intimate capacity, like we're directing it, leading, guiding, and directing, or something, because this is not going to work. So you saw at the same time that women were not speaking as feminism, they were at the same time engaging in more prostitution. So now you see sort of people have become more comfortable, but I sense the discomfort because women don't want to go back to that here and everywhere else. I noticed that a lot of women who men were flirting with on the job, they may have had a girlfriend or a wife, right? And I'm speaking, of course, in Western urban industrial terms. They have a woman at home, and the women on the job who they've been flirting with, the women did not want to talk to them. I was like, hey, Fred, you know, I heard you and your wife, y'all got a big house, right? I was wondering if I could, you know, I need a little help right now. If I could move in, I'll wash the dishes, I'll clean up with the kids. You heard this by the thousands. It was all over the place. And I'm like, well, if men would have said, hey, the only thing we're going to accept is we know you're part of a system already, and we're going to help make sure you're taken care of, or we will make sure that we guide and lead properly, and you're part of our system. And that's all men had to do. So you sense the angst now between men and women now because of that pandemic. You see it. But at that time, most of the women were destitute. There was an uptick in female homelessness during that time. The first 2 years, there was an uptick in female homelessness. There was an uptick in women applying for unemployment. There was a huge uptick. So these are the type of things that polygamy can help to prevent. And generally, in a polygynous nation and culture, you're only going to see about 10 to about 30% of the men engaging in polygamy. But that stems the tide. You have less prostitution or no prostitution. You don't see really any homelessness, or there's rarely any homelessness, because even the men who become homeless and destitute, that's prevented because they have a brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And see, I've experienced that myself before, where because I had a brotherhood, they were like, "Oh man, oh wait, no, we got you, we got you," and I was able to get back and start building wealth. Why? Because I was part of a brotherhood. So it a lot. I'm just giving real time examples for your listeners, so that they know this is not theory at all. I've seen this entire thing. I've been through it. I've been through the entire everything we're talking about. I've seen it, and it works. Polygyny helps to stem the tide of societal decay, because men no longer have the opportunity, because of brotherhoods. We no longer have the opportunity to exploit women. You don't have that opportunity, because you're gonna have men over there like, wait a minute, bro, we gonna come to your house if you try to exploit our cousin, our female cousin, our sister. We coming to your house. You know, you're gonna have that military aspect coming out. Women are more protected in polygynous environments. Of course, we know that there's abuses here and there by women and men, but that's human nature and not polygyny. See, but in polygynous system, you close it by making sure children also have their needs met, because the mother is not going to be so tired all the time. Well, she's the only one that has to get up in the morning and watch the children. And now she's 30 and she's wiped out. She's got bags under her eyes because she doesn't have any help. So anyway, that just, you guys, words.
Solomon, yeah. The energy part of what you're saying is really interesting, because when I often have conversations with my partner Royale about these things, and it's really like a self-exploration about myself. I realized something really big the other day. I realized that as a man, it's in my nature to want to diversify, right? To expand. So when you become a man that has got power, you always, whether it's business, whether it's money, whether it's whatever it is, you always want to spread and have more. And this is the nature of being a man. Right? Women want to nurture. They want lots of things they can look after. Men want spaces where they can create lots of things. So I said, we're having a conversation. Yes. I said, if you think about it, all men are polygynous. All men. It doesn't matter. Even if you're a man and you've been with one woman, you are polygynous. And I'll tell you why. The reason for
it's called biopolygamy. I call it biopolygamy, biological polygamy.
Beautiful. So it might plug into the same thought that I'm about to share. So as a man, even if I have one woman and I've only slept with that one woman in my entire life, there are going to be moments where I've walked in the streets and I've looked at other women and I've fantasized about being with other women. There are going to be moments where you're going to be drawn to things like pornography. There are going to be moments where you're going to be looking at women with a what's the word? Coveting women. It's just natural as a man. Yeah. You can't control it. You see a beautiful woman, you're going to look, you're going to have thoughts. You can't control it. I don't care who you are and how spiritual you are. That's just a fact. By design, by that design, you're already polygamous, because you've given that energy, because that's energy. You've given that energy to an external force that is not actually giving you anything back.
Correct.
That fantasy that you've given to a woman, you've given that energy towards something, it's gone. It's energy. It's gone. Now, when you have women in your space, you've got so much you're already looking. You don't have time to be looking elsewhere. You've got 3-4 women that are needing your attention. You'd rather give that attention to those 3-4 women than women outside elsewhere. Yeah. It's coming back. Yeah. You're not creating a circuit or a loop within your own family. So when you look at it that way strategically, it's like, how more efficient will you be as a man if all your thoughts, if all your emotions, if all your actions are going into the feminine energies that are around you, that are helping and fanning you be co-creative? It's coming back to you.
Well, polygamous men tend to be more sexually disciplined than men who are single and men who are monogamous. Absolutely. I mean, there's women even when I was in the Philippines, when I was actually there, and I was with my consorts, there were women who, there was one woman, I just give you an example, just to give you a highlight what the experience of what you're saying. So I was with one of my consorts, and she answers my phone. Okay, she's like, "Sir, you don't have to do anything." She said, "You work hard, you take care of it." She's like, "We got you." So they even answer my phone, and she answered the phone one day, and there was a woman who was interested in me, and she was like right down the road. I mean, she was like 20 minutes down the road, and she said, "Hey, Solomon, are you coming over?" I said, "No." I said, I'm not, because she didn't meet my criteria. And when you have the woman or women that you want, you're not, like you said before, you're not tempted to go entertain anything but the best in your eyes. So the woman didn't meet my criteria. And because I already had my two consorts there, I wasn't tempted to break my codes and my requirements to go see this woman. And I told her no. I said, I'm not going to come see you because you don't fit my criteria. And now you're in a better position as a man. And this helps to protect the women you already have. You're in a better position as a man to vet other women who may be interested in you or who you may be interested in, but you have to vet them. You have to do international back to see that and I think I'm the only one who teaches this stuff. You got to do international background checks. You have to find out where she works. I have my women give me resumes. All my women have to give me a resume. I want to see a resume. I want to see a CV. I want to know who your family members are. I want to know where you grew up at. I want to know who your friends are, and I want to talk to them. I'm full scale with my stuff, and I don't tolerate anything less than the best, and I get the best that I can get within my context. So it's my women are always very friendly. That's a requirement. If she's not naturally friendly toward others, I always watch that. If she's snappy with her mouth, I never ever I don't let them get within 100 meters of me, because from a political perspective, from, from a political perspective, it's like if you all invited me to your community, let's just give an example. If you invited me to your community and I go get one of my Filipinas to come with me to Portugal, okay? And if she's really mouthy, well, that's not the context I want to bring somebody like that in. You know, you all are fostering a peaceful environment, very communal. But my women are very, very communal and they're very quiet. They're not all over social media running their mouths and things like that, because that ruins the man's reputation. It doesn't ruin their reputation, it ruins yours. So I always find women who are just naturally peaceful. And at the same time, I get women who are very rugged and know how to farm, who know how to work outside, work with their hands. These are not things we have to force. You just find those women who fit your context. So in your case, you know, you want women who are very communal. If they're not communal, they wouldn't fit in with Pineal Foundation. They just wouldn't fit. So it's it's really about getting people who match your personality. Of course, I like women who are the opposite of me. You know, a little bit less serious, but they know how to work with their hands. They're very energetic. I always look at their health, things like that. I'm like, general state of health. I want to know if they're mentally sound. Do they use drugs? I don't get women who use drugs. I never do. That's automatic, off the table. So these are all things we have to think about as men, because once we bring them in, we don't want anything further impacting their mind and their body and their spirit. So now we can have them adjust better to what it is we're doing. And at the same time, we're very considerate of their needs, their desires, because some women, they like the color blue and they like their house this way. Another woman may like her tent another way, and she likes a little bit more clutter. You know, one woman may be a little older. She may give you 1 or 2 children. The other woman maybe give you 5 or 6. As a polygamous man, you have to plan, like literally within 48 hours, you have to know everything that you're going to do with that woman, how to treat her. Like, I can talk to one of my women, I can be sarcastic with her sometimes. She can take that. But the other one, I'm more serious with her. She likes, honey and ginger tea that she gives to me all the time, and she likes to sip on that. She likes cats. The other one, she doesn't like animals. Like little things like that. You have to work with that within this whole matrix of what we call a family or a household. So anyway, I just get excited about this stuff. So I don't need to go.
Keeps you disciplined.
It keeps you present, keeps you accountable. And I think
Yes.
the plug in before we close the call is the one thing I want to really reiterate and really like hammer down on is we're talking about structures, family structures, solid, organized, disciplined, harmonious family structures. Yeah, what we're discarding is loose, undisciplined, frivolous, promiscuous nature. We're talking about structured, organized, well thought family structures that provide safety and abundance. that are accountable. This is what we're talking about. That's what I just really want to make clear for anyone who's new to this topic, is we're talking about systems and structure.
And health as well. If you think about it, something I'm always reiterating to people. It's so strange when you speak to people, especially since I've become an advocate for polygyny. One of the things that comes back to me is, you just want lots of women, just have sex, and this is not fair. What about the women? And it's like, well, if you think about it, it's more acceptable now for me to have multiple girlfriends, or for me to sleep around, to have girlfriends here, have a one-night stand, go clubbing, sleep with a woman, come home and say, oh, it's all done. That's fine. But the moment I say I'm only going to sleep with women I'm going to take care of, oh, that's crazy. That's weird.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're looking for sex. I'm looking for women that I want to take care of, and those are the only women I would engage with. This shows how far disconnected society has become.
Well, part of that too, brother Agua, is there's a fearfulness in men in the modern world now, and it's spreading from Western countries into other more, I guess more agricultural and more familial lands, and it's ruining their structures as well. But that's a fearfulness in men, because when a man wakes up one day and says, I want to be the best, absolute best I can be in here, embodied. When they wake up and they say that's what I want, you have to allow the best of yourself to come out, and you have to get rid of all of your vices. You have to get rid of all negativity in your life. Even if you are a man with a girlfriend or girlfriends in a more Western or more industrial context, you start to kind of get them out of the cycle, because you need to start over. This is what's happening. And men are afraid of doing that, what you said. Men are afraid to say, you know what, why don't I just get 5 women and we build a household? Why don't I just do that? Because one, it brings out the best in men. They're going to have to get rid of their vices. They're also going to have to build financially. They're going to have to possibly go get residency, citizenship somewhere. They're possibly going to have to have land. They're possibly going to have to learn some hands-on skills, combat, self-defense, gunplay. They're going to have to learn this stuff, and it takes time, and it takes money, and it takes the energy that they don't want to do. And that's a fearfulness in the modern man that has to be wiped out, because if things did become militaristic, those weaker men are going to be erased anyway.
It's already happening. It's already happening.
We have thousands of records of that happening.
Yeah,
it's already happening, and it happened during a pandemic. So while the women were losing their jobs and going to prostitution in most countries, you saw the weaker men. And when I say weak, I'm talking about the men who did not want to be their best selves. Those men fell off the wayside. They got into drugs. I've seen it. They got into drugs. They became homeless and never tried to get out of it. They started just playing video games all day. They didn't want it. They just moved in with somebody and they just said, I don't want to do anything, but I'm not going to rebuild. I saw it. And me and my friends, because we're so dominant in that aspect, we all rose up. As far as money is concerned, I remember my income doubled the first 2 years of the pandemic. My income doubled, because I was like, nah, man, I'm on my grind. And that competition that you mentioned earlier, brother, it came out of me, because I said, I'm gonna use this time in this space where the earth is quiet to build. And that's strategy. That's economic warfare strategy. So I just want to build on that, brother, because this stuff makes me excited. What you and Brother Jar are doing, and what your families are doing there. That's very exciting, and I'm glad again that y'all thought of enough of me to have me on. I really appreciate it, because as you can see, I get excited about this stuff. So
yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you here, really. And I guess this is more personal for myself, but to have come across your works many years ago when it was just an idea, and to now be sitting at the table with you and having a discussion as your peer and speaking about our experiences, for me, it's very touching for me to be in that space and to share that with the brothers and sisters around, that it was something that was just a concept in the mind at one point. And at the time I came across your works, I was actually chaste. So I was in a bout of celibacy, and that's when it all came out. And now going into this space after going through that period of discipline, and to see how family dynamics are way more fulfilling than anything I was doing before.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm really, really humbled and very grateful that we're sharing this space rather than just me listening now. It's like I've actually got something to bring to the table. So yeah, like I said, I'm very grateful for you, your works, and for joining us today. Yeah, it's been magical, and I'm sure we can do a episode 2, right? For sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad too that my work has had that impact because sometimes, in the midst of everything, I'm just like, I'm just a guy out here, what I'm saying? I'm working like everybody else, what I'm saying? I'm engaging in my structure like everybody else. And then when people like yourselves, I should say, hit me up and say, hey man, I appreciate that small 74-page book that you wrote, man. Like that took a lot out of me just to write that. And now the next book will be about 300 to 400 pages when PEW comes out. So I've got some other works coming, but to know that it's impacted y'all like that, I really, really appreciate that. And that helps to keep me going. And that's brotherhood because our energy should always be, recycled and then expanded. So thanks again. I appreciate it.
When Agua came to me and he said, I just finished watching Hondo's interview on YouTube. This is when I was celebrating. I said, okay, cool. Now we're going down this path. And since this has been not necessarily just polygamy, but more extended families and tribes, since this has become the topic, the vision is much clearer. There's much more tranquility. People are really finding their spaces. Because like you mentioned, not so much prostitution or anything like that, but when we noticed when young men or young women were not with
in a unit
with a unit or with a strong grounded family, that's when they tended to become lost. So notice a lot of the younger ones, they would come together and they'd leave together because they'd nurtured something that wasn't so sustained, so grounded. And you notice the peoples within the community who grounded within the strong family structures are the ones who stay, and there's longevity. So yeah, like I said, super appreciative. I'm really happy we've had this discussion because it's right on time. Because I'm sure there's many people who are trying to find a solution, and they're naturally inclined to want to do something like what we're doing. And I really feel this is going to inspire those people and even help to soothe and give some peace to women out there who are also knowing that they want to be a part of something that's grounded and has longevity, but maybe they haven't yet found the system that works for them. So yeah, super.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to second that as well and say, yeah, I want to give thanks because when I started researching, because I was like, well, who else is talking about these family dynamics? And there aren't many level-headed people who do it in a very strategic, intelligent way. So the people that are talking about polygamy are in that space of exploitation and it's not balanced and it's all for the wrong reasons. And you and a lady called Susan Tata are the only two people I've come across who I was like, this is how it should be. This is the closest thing to where we need to be going. So I also want to give thanks for that confirmation that actually what we're doing and what we're culturing is not just in homeostasis. It's just not here. It's expansive. There are other minds who are in alignment with the vision that we have. So yeah, give thanks for the work that you've been doing and keep going.
Thank you. And there's more to come. There's more to come, and hopefully we can talk about that as well. Behind the scenes, and maybe talk about it more publicly. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Give thanks, brother. I wish you the best for the rest of your day, and good fortune on your endeavors. And we'll catch up soon.
All right, y'all. All right, peace.
Love, man.